States across the U.S. are expanding access to coronavirus vaccines. Numbers from the CDC show nearly 40 million Americans have received at least one dose. More than 14 million have received both. But vaccine supply is still running low. The director of the CDC says the nation is, quote, scaling up its efforts as she warns the more contagious variant first discovered in the UK could be the dominant strain in the U.S. by the end of next month. The U.S. has confirmed more than 27.6 million cases since the pandemic began. More than 486,000 lives have been lost. Overall, cases have been declining, but as Carter Evans reports, we shouldn't let our guards down.
It may be the lull before the next COVID storm. Nearly every single state is now trending in the right direction. Nationwide, new COVID cases are at their lowest since the end of October. Hospitalizations down 46% in the last month. But leading public health experts say, brace yourselves.
The next 14 weeks, I think, will be the worst of the pandemic.
Tonight, New York confirms it's treating its first case of a variant likely discovered in South Africa, and it may get much worse.
It turns out we have plenty of our own variants here in the U.S.
Exactly. I think that was a lot of our concern.
Louisiana State virologist Dr. Jeremy Camille is one of the scientists who recently found evidence of at least 7 homegrown variants.
They may have little subtle effects on how well the virus colonizes a human respiratory tract.
It intensifies the race to vaccinate Americans before the next potential surge. More megasites are opening, but some, like San Francisco's Moscone Center, have had to shut down. Supplies are running out. Amid that supply shortage, several states have expanded who's eligible for the vaccine, including those with underlying conditions. 28 states have made educators eligible. Today, Chicago's school district launched 4 vaccination sites just for teachers. But the tight supply means difficult choices.
We just don't have enough vaccine to say to everybody, come on, get in line. I would put all my vaccine in 65 years and older. And I know teachers may not want to hear that, but I think that's the right message.
Another potential roadblock for schools. Under new CDC guidelines, there are limits to reopening if they're in so-called red zones, communities where viral transmission is highest. It turns out 91% of all U.S. students live in red zones. Also tonight,
not providing the information creates the void.
New York Governor Andrew Cuomo defended himself against charges that the state underreported the death toll from nursing homes early in the pandemic, then tried to cover it up.
And I want everyone to know everything was done. Everything was done by the best minds in the best interest.
Vaccination sites in the Los Angeles area still don't have enough shots. This location is only able to give out second doses right now. California also hit a grim milestone today. COVID has killed 47,000 people here, more than any other state in the nation. Elaine?
Carter Evans, thank you. For more, let's turn to Dr. Eric Coie-Peña. He's the Director of Global Health and an emergency room physician at Northwell Health. Welcome, Doctor. So the director of the CDC says the variant first found in the UK could be the dominant strain here in the U.S. by the end of March. What would that mean for our vaccination and recovery efforts? And at this point, is there any way to stop this from happening?
Yeah, I think the message is pretty clear. We need to continue getting shots in arms, vaccinate as many people as quickly as possible, for as long as we possibly can, and then maintain the social distancing, mask wearing, and other guidelines that have worked against the other variants. This is an eventuality, I think, that a more contagious strain will become dominant. That's how viruses work. But how big a peak is in March or how big our epidemic is really is dependent on how serious we take the next few weeks. So we really got to get serious.
So experts say that current vaccines do appear to hold up against new variants. If that's the case, doctor, what is the major concern when it comes to the virus mutating?
So, the major concern is twofold. Number one, the virus mutates. It can be much more contagious, so it may be contagious through a single mask, as the CDC has suggested by the double mask recommendation last week. The other thing is as mutations continue and there's large numbers of hosts, it may find a way to evade the vaccine. It hasn't found one yet, but we don't want to give it the chance to do that. And so by reducing the number of copies in human beings, reduce the spread, we're able to reduce the chance of creating new variants that may evade vaccine.
Well, states are expanding access to coronavirus vaccines, but they say supply isn't keeping up with the demand, and still about 20 million doses have been distributed but not administered. So how much of this delayed rollout is a supply issue?
I think it's mostly a supply issue. I think a lot of the states that have already kind of gotten a robust vaccination program started are being frustrated by the fact that they don't have the supply. I think there are other conditions where there are states that haven't started or don't have as robust a rollout in, and then they're being frustrated because they just don't have a system to get people in. But I think it's more at least in where we are, from our perspective, more the former, that we've got the mechanisms, we're able to vaccinate people, we just need the vaccine.
Meantime, a large-scale Israeli study found the Pfizer vaccine is 94% effective at preventing symptomatic infections in every age group. How significant are these findings?
So that's huge. So, this is when we look at vaccines, we look at how they prevent transmission of the virus. But the secondary benefit is people that don't have severe symptoms, don't require hospitalization. Those are all secondary benefits. So the fact that you could get infected with COVID, but you're much more likely to have an asymptomatic infection, that's an incredible news. That's a really good sign. And we want to continue kind of promoting that when we're talking with people about the vaccine.
What about kids? So Oxford University has launched a trial to assess the safety of the AstraZeneca vaccine in children. The volunteers will be 6 to 17 years old. What will you be looking out for?
So really with kids, we're really looking at how their immune system responds. Does it respond the same as adults? Any potential side effects that we notice. But, we have no real belief that this is going to react differently in children. Children are just a much more protected group of people to study. And so we usually treat them separately when we do studies. And they weren't the main kind of risk category. So, they were kind of de-emphasized in the initial trials as we rushed to get good trial data out. So I do think they're an important group of people to study. I think it's important to study this in kids, but I don't have any doubts that we're going to see similar results as we saw in the adult trials, and we just need to wait and see what the data shows.
Well, as we saw in Carter's piece, infections in the U.S. have been falling for several weeks. Doctor, what is driving this drop in numbers?
I think it's primarily coming off the holidays. I think we're seeing a drop, just a natural decline in the virus from the peaks that we saw for Christmas and New Year's. I don't think we're out of the woods yet. I think we need to take this very seriously. I don't think this is an indication that we're winning. I think we need to just look at it as a natural drop that we can hold down and continue for the fall by maintaining good social distancing, mask wearing, and just get those vaccines in people.
All right, Dr. Eric Coie-Peña. Doctor, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me again.